Senor Salute. I'm Lord Maitreya, the hip hop futurist. You're now tuned into the Super Longevity Institute podcast. This evening at the Institute, I have a very special guest. He is an atheist, activist, writer, blogger, former radio host. He is the former head of the Philadelphia Coalition of Reason and has served on the board of the Free Thought Society of Greater Philadelphia. As creator and host of the Dangerous Talk radio show, he discussed atheism, politics, and social issues. The show later transitioned to the Free Thought Radio Podcast Network alongside the Infidel Guy and the National Response Squad. As a writer, he was the National Atheism Examiner on Examiner.com. He served as a Huffington Post contributor and worked as a freelance writer for publisher Weekly Religion section. He continues to blog on the Skeptic Network. He holds a master's degree in philosophy from Westchester University. Ladies and gentlemen, hip hop futurists, transhumanists worldwide, I want to give a warm welcome to our guest, Stax Rosch. Did I say your last name right?
You did, actually.
Okay.
Most people don't, so
Okay.
Thank you.
I don't want to goof that up.
No, I appreciate it. Most people do get that wrong. You got that right on.
Yeah, thank you. It's a pleasure to have you, man.
Thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah, man. Disproving God, man. 5 adequate reasons to be an atheist was very interesting. Very interesting book, man. Let me just go on a little bit. Let me ask you a question. What made you want to get into to get a degree in philosophy?
It's interesting because I didn't start out that way. Most people don't. I started out wanting to be into the sciences like astronomy and earth science. And I'm from North Jersey, right? New York City, close to where your area.
Mm-hmm.
And where I grew up, there weren't really that many super religious people. There are people who go to church and synagogue and stuff like that,
Yes.
but nobody that was really fundamentalist. When you hear like the South with fundamentalists, we didn't have that where I was. So when I came down to Pennsylvania, that's where I first met fundamentalists, and it just blew me away. And I just had to know how they could believe some of these things that I thought were just ridiculously crazy. So, I mean, I don't want to insult anybody who has
No,
that
we're talking
view,
truth
but
here.
but
Yeah.
I just thought some of these positions were just ridiculous. Like people believe in demons, like actual demons, and
Right.
I'm thinking, is this like Dungeons and Dragons? What's going on?
Yeah, yeah,
But I
yeah.
became friendly with these people because I was very so intrigued by the passion they put into their belief,
Right, right.
and that I gravitated to that passion. So I found myself eating dinner with them, hanging out with them, going to their religious meetings with them, even though I was a non-believer. And they became good friends of mine. But we had all these philosophical discussions. So when I wasn't doing well in sciences, I decided to switch and become get into philosophy. Uh,
What did
but yeah,
what is
oh,
the
go on. So
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you. For my audience, can you just tell us what is the study of philosophy for those who just they're not academic?
yeah,
They don't
so
know.
philosophy is like the study of wisdom, which sounds very pretentious, but it's just basically like how we know what we know, why the big why questions. Why
Right.
are we here? What's right? What's wrong? There's philosophy of language, how we got language. Um, Philosophy can be broken into many different areas.
Right.
My specialty was more comparative religion and ethics, but yeah, I also study. You also have to study the ancient philosophers, figure out how they thought, and how that helps us in our thinking.
Right. Right.
Um, so yeah, it all builds on everything else. And for instance, there was a philosopher back 2,500 years ago who came up with the idea of atoms, and he didn't know anything about physics.
Right.
He 2,500 years ago, but he had the idea of it, and then that idea scientists later tested, and now we have a whole science with atoms and subatomic particles and everything else, but it all came from philosophy.
Wow. Um. Wow, that's interesting. What can you tell us what is atheism? Because there's a lot of I think people have the wrong ideas on what atheism. They believe it's devil worship. Some people, yeah, they don't. That's what
Yeah.
that's what they
So
think.
atheists don't believe in the devil anymore. We believe in God.
Right.
Uh, but it's weird because atheism, there's a lot of different aspects to it. The basic aspect is atheists don't believe in a God. So it's not like we're putting forth a belief that we don't believe. It's more we've heard people say there's this God and we're not buying it.
Mm-hmm.
But there's other forms, like I've met atheists from different political um, persuasions, uh, people who just go through their lives. They don't really pay any attention to religion at all. Uh, it doesn't really affect them, and so they don't believe in a God. They're atheists too. But from where I
Excuse
am,
me.
most people in what we call the greater community of atheists tend to be pretty liberal people.
Mm-hmm.
They tend to be pretty pro science, but that's not always the case.
Right.
But that's like if you were to say there's an atheist community out there, that's what that community would look like. But there are atheists certainly that are outside that community.
Mm. Interesting.
Um, and when I was working in a machine shop,
Mm.
I was exposed, I guess, as an atheist. And I was surprised there were people at that machine shop who were also atheists, but they didn't identify it as an
Right.
atheist necessarily. They just like, oh, we don't believe in religion,
Mm-hmm.
But that's what atheist is. They just never use that name.
Right.
Uh,
Right. When did you know that you were an atheist? Or did you always
well,
know?
no, I grew up. I was brought up Jewish, and I went to Hebrew school
Mm.
3 days a week after regular school, and then around the age of 13, I sort of um, I ran into the problem of evil, which is it's a philosophical problem that actually predates Christianity, but
Right.
it's a big problem within Christianity, which is basically if God is good, why do good people suffer?
Right.
Is basically if can't God protect the good people? You know, and so I wrestled with that issue, and I came out of it thinking that there was no God.
Mm.
But it wasn't until years later when I came down to college that I really became an atheist activist because that's when I met the crazy people.
Mm.
uh, but I'm friendly with those crazy people. I
Right.
love them, but they're crazy.
Yes.
Actually, I was scheduled to have lunch with one of my college friends
Mm.
um, the other day, but I just got my COVID shot, so I was not feeling up to it. I have to
Mm.
reschedule with him. But he was an interesting guy because he's a religious person. When I met him, he was a follower of Harold Camping. I don't know if you have you heard of Harold Camping?
No, I never heard.
He was a religious guy in the 70s who I guess in the 70s he thought the world was going to end
Mm.
and it didn't. And then in the 1990s, he came back and said, now he's sure the world's going to
Wow.
end. And that was when my friend was involved. And he was really a follower of him. And I would sit in his room and we'd listen to Harold Camping on the radio,
Wow.
telling him that the world is going to end in September of 1994. That's when
Wow.
he thought it was going to end. September of 1994.
Wow.
And then that didn't happen, obviously. And
Wow.
then I think he said again he was going to I think it was 2001 or 2002. He thought the world was going to end, and that year he had like big billboards and everything, and it
Wow.
was buses crossing the country. And then he finally admitted he had no idea. world would. I think he died not too long ago. Yeah,
wow.
but
Sorry.
yeah, third time he failed and
Wow.
camping.
He was
But
just
my
like,
friend was really into it.
wow.
He really thought. He really thought.
Wow.
He was really into it.
Well, I ain't gonna lie. I used to be a doomsday. I believed in some of that nonsense as a child, but no, not any longer. Thank goodness. Not in that way, at
Yeah,
least. I mean, I know that human life is fragile, but it's not.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
not in a supernatural way like they like the religious people believe. But doomsday is, man. That's a terrible mind frame to
yeah.
be in. It's like,
Yeah, I mean, we have to have something to live for. I mean, we're in
yeah,
coronavirus. This is as close to doomsday as we're getting, but
yeah.
we're gonna come out of it.
This is
Yeah, I
evidence
just
to
got
some
my second.
people.
Yeah, I mean, I
This
just
is
got my second vaccination.
yeah,
I'm excited about being able to go back into the world, see some family again.
yeah. So you think we're gonna open up by the summer? Probably.
I'm hoping if enough people get vaccinated, we'll have at least
That
partial
would be nice.
opening up.
Yeah.
What I worry about though is I worry about uh, some people are going to be vaccinated and have the cards to prove it, and we're going to have like a two-class society where if you're vaccinated, you can go into restaurants, and if you're not, you can't. And not
Yeah.
everybody has the time to take off of work to get vaccinated, especially when there are side effects that can take you out for a day.
Yeah.
So I worry about that kind of like the equality issues involved with that.
Yeah. The
So
passport
we'll have to,
situation.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Well.
not that the vaccines aren't available; they're available, but because of the side effects, you might have to take a day off of work, and
Yeah.
some people can't afford that.
That's true. That's true. I'm hoping that there won't that won't it won't be a mandatory like proof that you got vaccinated. I hope that's not the case. I really do.
Yeah, and
I'll be
then the
honest.
fear is are people going to try to counterfeit those cards,
Yeah.
and they're not going to be vaccinated when they say they are, and
Yeah.
then that's
Just
going to lead to more people getting sick.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
I see all kinds of doomsday scenarios.
Yeah. I don't think it's a good idea. Just
But I'm
leave people
paranoid.
alone.
I'm not saying I believe those things. I'm just
No. No.
saying my paranoia.
What are
I
some?
watch too much sci-fi.
Yeah. Me too. Um. What do you think is the misconceptions about atheism?
Well, one of the things was that we worship the devil.
Right.
Uh, that's a big one. One that I think is hilarious is that we eat babies.
Mm.
Uh, some of my atheist friends joke about it. We turn it into memes and jokes. And my one friend, Sam Singleton, he made cupcakes with babies on top
Oh wow.
as a joke, just to mock that.
Mm.
Um, that we don't care about other people.
Mm.
I find most atheists in my community are very caring and very compassionate people.
Mm.
Uh, yeah, we're hard on religious ideas, but we're compassionate towards religious people.
Right.
Uh, people always ask me, why do I always defend Muslims?
Mm.
And it's, as an atheist, because in our country, Muslims are, they're getting picked on.
Mm.
I don't defend Islam. I think
Right.
Islam is a terrible religion.
Right.
But I defend people. I don't want people getting picked on.
Right. Right.
So I especially when Trump was president,
Mm.
he was attacking Muslims and trying to force them out of the country, and yeah, I think that's terrible.
Yeah.
I wish Muslims wouldn't believe the things they believe,
Right.
but I'll try to convince them otherwise. But I
Right.
don't think we should hate on them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's where I draw the line. And I think a misconception is that a lot of atheists, when we attack religious beliefs, we're actually attacking religious people, and we're not.
There's a distinction,
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah.
yeah. So we see a very big distinction there.
Yeah.
I'll defend religious people all the time.
Mm.
I'll defend people's right to believe what they believe, but I also try to convince them that they're wrong.
Right. Right. Yeah. Because I know that people, a lot of times too, when you say you're atheist, people say that, are you angry with God? They don't really. That's
Yeah,
how
I
I know
get
they
that
don't
a
really
lot
understand
too.
the
Yeah.
definition. They don't,
Yeah.
a lot of people don't. That's why I asked you to explain to people what's atheism, because I know people,
Hmm.
and that's not to say they're low intelligence. They just don't know
Right.
and
They're just not
unfamiliar with
experienced
it.
with it.
Yeah.
Because atheism is still something that's marginalized. We don't see a lot of atheists out there in the world. Um, we They're still very closeted, a lot of atheists, and with good reason. I mean, if I wore an atheist shirt, even in Philadelphia, I'd get people looking at me funny, and maybe even somebody getting violent towards me just
Right.
for wearing an atheist shirt.
Right.
It says "Hell is imaginary." I have a shirt that says "Hell is imaginary," and when I go to, sometimes we'd have atheist events in the city, and I'd go and I'd wear my "Hell is imaginary" shirt, and I'd get people looking at me funny. Sometimes people would get belligerent towards me.
Mhm.
I can't, and that's in Philadelphia, which is a
Right.
city in relatively north. I can't imagine if I was in Alabama or Texas.
Right.
Forget it. That's a death sentence right there. You
Yeah.
wear an atheist shirt in Texas, you're probably getting shot.
Yeah. Yeah.
I gotta think.
You ain't lying. Zotan told you what happened to him in Alabama.
No, no,
I
he
let
did
him. I
not.
let him talk. I'll go back and watch the videos. I let him
Okay.
go see the movie Immortalist. Damn, I don't know why the title is escaping me, and I'm in it. But Immortality or Bust. Go see Immortality or
Mm.
Bust.
Yeah,
It's on
Zoltan wrote the back.
Amazon Prime.
Yeah, Zoltan wrote the back blurb for my book.
Yeah,
So,
no,
whoops. Yeah,
I
I think we
wonder what
talked
he
about that in the pre-show.
what did he say. Can you read what he said? I'm
Yeah, sure. He
curious.
said, this book is a true benefit to humanity by making a simple and convincing case against the supernatural. Stacks Rosch frees people to embrace the world we live in and compels them to work towards creating a better future.
Mm. Yeah, what another thing I wanted to ask you, can you explain to people what is supernaturalism? Because I get people that says, "Yeah, I'm an atheist," but then they have these supernatural
Right.
ideas. So to me it's like a contradiction.
Yeah, it is a little bit. I mean, it
Or
isn't and isn't. I
contradictory.
mean, yeah, most
Kind
atheists
of.
tend to embrace reason,
Yeah.
but again, not all atheists do. Supernaturalism is based believing in anything that's supernatural, like ghosts, um, magic powers,
Mm-hmm.
anything like that, supernatural. I guess technically you could be an atheist and still believe in that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just it's not common. It
Right.
doesn't make too much sense
Right.
because if you're reasonable enough to reject the belief in a supernatural deity, you should realize that the other supernatural things are just an extension of that.
Right.
And so that's kind of silly. But sometimes people have weird attachments to different things.
That's
So
true.
I've met some atheists who do believe in supernatural things. It's just
Yeah.
it's odd. It's not common, especially not
Yeah,
within
it's
the
not.
atheist community.
Yeah, it's true.
But I used to believe in ghosts and supernatural stuff when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
I was really into to learning about that kind of stuff. I used to listen to um, Art Bell, who's a radio host who used to talk about supernatural stuff. I used
Mm.
to listen to his show a lot
Wow.
about aliens and ghosts and all kinds of supernatural phenomenon. I found that
Yeah.
fascinating, and I really was into that for a little while. I was into Reiki, which is
Yeah, me
like
too.
a healing,
I know what it
healing
is.
touch kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, yeah.
I was into that. I actually still know an atheist who is still into Reiki, which is kind of weird to me.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, it sure is.
but yeah, I mean, I was into it at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, but now sometimes if I know somebody who's into it, I'll humor them with it because I know enough about it that I can talk about it
Mm.
convincingly. So I'll humor them a little bit and then try to bring them out of it a little
Yeah. Let me ask you.
bit.
What is tell us your 5 reasons to be an atheist. Can we just get a
uh,
brief outline?
Yeah, I don't want to give away too much.
Okay.
I'm not sure if I remember them in order anyway, but hold on, let me look here. I have to look at my own book here.
Mm,
um, so my five reasons is basically more of a silly kind of me being funny
mm,
and just talking about different, like there's so many reasons to be an atheist,
right.
but and people always say, well, what are the best reasons?
Mm,
And it's hard to say what the best reasons are because everybody is different. So one reason for one person that might, really help one person might not be the best reason for another person. So that's why I made it five adequate reasons.
mm,
Also, the other reason why I did that was because I started off the book with a pretty strong position. Disproving God is pretty like right in your face,
mm,
and I wanted to tone it down a bit
mm,
with the second part. And so the first part of the book is more like a more academic kind of argument, but it's a philosophical argument that anybody could give in like 5 minutes. You're talking to a street preacher, you can give them this argument, maybe even a minute. You can give
mm,
them this argument, and then the second half of the book is more just me being funny with a couple of different reasons. So, like for one, I have you don't need no stinking deity.
mm,
It's just kind of like you don't really need a god to do anything really. Um, you have it all; it's all there already. The
mm,
second problem is the problem of evil,
yeah.
which is what brought me into atheism initially.
Mm,
Um, and it's still a really good argument that religious people can't get around. And this argument is so good; it predates Christianity.
right.
It's 2,500 years old. It predates Christianity, and yet religion still hasn't really answered it. Like,
Mm,
why do good people suffer?
right.
There is no real. If God's all powerful, why can't he stop suffering? We're in a
Right.
pandemic. Why is it that religious people die of COVID at the same rate as atheists die of COVID?
Right.
Wouldn't you think if you're a religious person who you prayed to God, were right religion, wouldn't it make more sense for prayer? And you're being prayed upon by your religious believers. Why wouldn't those people survive at a greater rate, like a ridiculously greater rate? You would think it'd be like close to 100%.
Right.
But all the studies of prayer have shown that at best it's a marginal difference. Like maybe they may have a little bit more chance, but that's mainly because of the psychosomatic of having the feeling that people are caring for you.
Right.
And in one study of prayer I read showed that actually people who have been prayed for have a less chance of survival,
Wow.
which I'm not really sure why that is. Um, but it probably has more to do with people feeling comfortable dying than
Mm,
it does magic from God.
mm,
uh,
right. Right. Right.
so let's see, what was the third reason I had here? I had so many reasons at one point that I had to whittle them down. I don't remember. Hell is a good reason.
Right.
So, we talk about I talk a lot about social justice issues, and we have a horrible prison system. Everybody knows this. America has a terrible prison system, but as terrible as our prison system is, God's perfect prison system is way worse.
Mm,
Right? You do the smallest little offense, and He throws you in prison to be tortured for all eternity. No parole, no reprieve, tortured for all eternity. You do
mm.
one little crime, and it maybe even doesn't even hurt anybody,
Mm.
and that's it. You're done.
Yeah.
That's there's no appeals, no nothing. It's just that's the worst,
Sounds kind
worst
of
prison
harsh.
system ever.
Yeah.
Like,
Sounds kind of
like
harsh.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's no, you tell a lie once, that's it. You're done.
Damn.
Like,
There's some type of fear component
Yeah,
to this.
yeah.
It's
So
like
I
a
mean,
fear
that's how you know
component.
it's BS because
Yeah.
that's something they would have created it back in, 2,000 years ago as maybe a deterrent. But
Mm.
now we have actually a better, legal system. It's not perfect. It's still pretty terrible,
Yeah.
but it's way better than that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, yeah. Um, the fourth one is we don't know,
Mm.
right? So when we don't know everything. We don't know what's out in the universe. Could there be a God? I guess it
Mm.
just doesn't seem very likely. Um, the Darth Vader could be out there. We don't
Right.
know. We
Right.
don't know. Darth Vader's in a galaxy far, far away. He lived a long time ago. We weren't there. We
Right.
don't know.
Right. Right.
All
Right.
right. So this is just be kind of being funny and
Mm.
it's being wacky. And the fifth one is, of course, my favorite is the Bible is just completely ridiculous.
Right.
It's bored. What I say it's boredom populated by absurdity.
Right.
And this actually got me in trouble on Facebook the other day with one of my friends, is I posted a meme I created about a time in the Bible. I put a Bible verse up. It's a Bible verse most people haven't even um, don't even know about it. I forget what it is now. I have to look it up. But
Mm.
it basically is when Jesus rose from the dead in the Bible. It tells a story of how the earth broke open and saints in the town rose up from the dead
Mm.
and walked around the town for all to see. It's like
Wow.
zombies in the Bible. Christians got to leave, but
Yeah.
if they want to convert young people with, age of the Walking Dead, they got to leave with the zombies. But I didn't even know about that until when I was writing for Examiner.com.
Mm.
There was an article on CNN about this archaeologist who was no, not archaeologist, geologist who was doing a study with some religious people about when the earth broke open in that verse.
Mm.
And he was trying to find the dating of that, and, something like that. And I thought that was absurd, right?
Mm.
Geologists try to find the dating of when the earth broke open in the Bible. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So, so I wrote an article about it, and he actually reached out to me, the geologist,
Wow.
and uh, he's an atheist, and he only took the assignment for the funding. He didn't. He knew that I wasn't in the Bible,
Wow.
but he wanted to know. He wanted to know other issues, other geological things, and these religious people were going to pay for his ride to do what they wanted and then what he wanted.
Wow.
So he did it to fund his research, like real
Wow.
scientific research.
Wow.
Um, so it was fascinating, and I'm probably getting the story somewhat wrong too, but
Mm.
but it was something like that. Um,
Wow.
but yeah, it was fascinating. We became friends after that, so it was
Mm.
great. I had to write a retraction.
Wow. That's crazy. Um.
That's the other thing. I think it's important. Atheists, we're human too, and when we make mistakes, we write retractions,
Right.
and we have to admit when we make mistakes.
Right.
And I think that's something that everybody should be able to do.
Yeah.
I find it's more common among atheists, but we still
Mm.
have problems with it too,
Mm.
as
Right.
everybody does. But especially online, we get into arguments with people. But um, it's important to be compassionate and to listen to other people and
Mm.
recognize when we make mistakes and apologize.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you. Yeah. Definitely. Um. Because you find with certain people that they're so gun ho about their ideas that they don't even want to admit when they're wrong. Like they don't.
Right.
It's something about human nature. I don't know if you can call it human nature, but even when people know that they're wrong, they don't want to be like, what, my bad. You're right. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's this. It's just like I don't know what that is. It's ego.
Right.
It's just ego. It's
Yeah.
ego.
And within atheism, a big thing is with religious people and atheism, there's a weird divide where if you're a religious person, the way you became religious is usually either you're born into it, or sometimes you have that born again experience.
Mm.
And usually that's something that's an emotionally driven experience where somebody decides to uproot their life and suddenly change and become religious.
Mm.
But with atheism, it doesn't go like that. Like you don't have a religious person who suddenly becomes an atheist.
Mm.
That's not really how it happens because religious people, I think, I could be wrong, tend to have more of that ego, because God is watching them, they're
Right.
special to God.
Right.
So they tend to have more of that ego. So it's not like, oh, I was clearly wrong. Let me change my life. It's more like, I have a little bit of doubt about this. I have a little bit of more doubt, more doubt. Let me research this. And the doubts grow and grow and grow. And then over time, they suddenly realize, oh, they're an atheist.
Mm.
It's more of a slow process
Mm.
where for a non-religious person to become a born again Christian, it's just like that. They have that usually like there's different. Actually, one of the books I'm planning on writing in the future deals with some of the reasons why people become born again Christian. But usually, like one reason was you have somebody who's addicted to a substance of some sort, either alcohol or drugs, and they're at their lowest point in their life, and they've hit rock bottom, and somebody comes to them and say, all your problems will be healed if you believe in Jesus,
Mm.
and then they go okay, and then they start fixing their life back together again in the name of Jesus,
Mm.
but really they're doing the work,
Right.
they're putting the work. But that change is that born again snap change, where for non-believers, it's a slow gradual process.
Um. Do you believe that we people can have a moral compass without believing in a God, a deity?
Absolutely. In fact, the next book I've actually started working on deals exactly with that.
Oh wow.
Um, I'm tentatively yeah, I think it's the book I've started working on it now already,
Hmm.
and it's that we can't have a moral compass with religious belief,
Mm.
um, because my view is that with God, all things are like there is no moral compass. Like with God, you're basically following God's whim and your interpretation of God's whim at that.
Right.
So, if you look at the Bible says all kinds of stuff, right? You can look at the Bible, the same people, and this is true, the same people who read the Bible believed that slavery was morally good and that slavery was morally bad.
Yeah.
During the American Revolutionary War and the Civil War, you had people justifying abolitionism and slavery using the same Bible.
Right. That makes sense
It's
to me.
crazy.
Right.
There are definitely verses in the Bible that support slavery, and there are definitely verses in the Bible that you can use to say that slavery is bad. So the Bible is a inconsistent book.
Right.
I mean, you could look at it and find whatever you want in it.
Right.
Um, there's no morality there,
Right.
and there are issues today that there's no way it's in the Bible. Like when we talk about stem cell research, there's no stem cell research in the Bible.
Yeah.
You gotta be kidding me. That's ridiculous.
Yeah. Right.
Now, some people, religious people, can find some kind of verse that they can twist and rearrange to make it seem like that, God knew, but
Wow.
they didn't know about stem cell research. So these are moral issues that we can't have based on religion because religion just wasn't up for that task back 2,000 years ago. You know, um, and then we have homosexuality,
Mm.
which was around then, and they stoned those people to death, and the Bible says you should kill them. That's certainly not moral.
That's true.
I wouldn't advise doing that today. You'll go to
Yeah.
jail, and it's not very good.
Right.
Um, so, we can't really have morality based on the Bible and or based on God because we don't know anything about God. The only reason why we can know any moral from God is through either the Bible or from divine revelation. And if you're going to say you have divine revelation from God, we call you crazy because nobody, it's weird. One person's divine revelation contradicts somebody else's divine revelation. It's almost like they're just hearing voices in their
Yeah. Yeah.
head.
Wow. Um. Do you think? I wonder if there's any polls taken to see how many Americans are what are believers and versus how many are atheists. I wonder if there's any study
Yeah,
polls.
there have been. The Harris poll does that every few years. I believe the number of atheists have been climbing, but they do split it into a few different categories. They kind of parse the numbers, and I don't have the latest numbers, but there's a number that's like religious believers, a number that's nones, which are non-believers but not necessarily atheists, like spiritual non-believers,
Yeah.
and then a smaller number that's declared atheists. I think they call it declared atheists. Um, and what we've seen is religious believers, that number is shrinking. The nuns number is growing quite a bit,
Mm.
and even the declared atheism is growing, and I believe that's at like 5 or 6% now. But I
Mm.
think the nuns is actually, I think I could be wrong about this. I think I saw a study that said it's at 55% now,
Mm.
which is the first time it's ever been more than 50%.
Interesting.
And I think I just saw that on the news a few weeks ago. But I used to follow the Harris polls on that pretty carefully. I haven't really followed it lately, but I think that's where we stand now. And with the nuns, it's spiritual but non religious. So some of those people um, might be considered atheists. Some of them might just not think about it. It's kind of a weird way to that they
Mm.
put it.
Mm. Interesting. Can one lead a fulfilled life without a belief in God? I know that
I
people
think
have that
so.
idea.
Yeah, I think we can live fulfilled lives without belief in God easily. People always ask me, well, what's the purpose of life without God? And there's a philosopher that I used to quote all the time named Ludwig Wittgenstein, and he used to say, um, the purpose of life is a life of purpose. So the idea is that we create our own purpose in life. So, whatever creates purpose for you.
Right.
We don't live eternal lives, and would we really want to if we could? I mean, I think way too much about this, but like when we hear about heaven, you'll live the perfect life in paradise forever and ever. That sounds great on paper, but when you really think about it, is that really something people would want? Because forever is kind of a long time. And if heaven is just like this perfect place where there's nothing you can't curse, you can't like all the fun things in life are not there because they're immoral, right? uh, it kind of get kind of boring after a while. And even if it was like the most fulfilling thing you had, after a couple of thousand years, be a little bored. And then you have loved ones who are being tortured down in hell. Do you get to like watch those people? Is that like a sporting event in heaven? Like, I don't you like what else would you do in heaven? Like, what would you do for all eternity? That's people don't realize how long of a time that is. But back when Christianity was created, when religion was created, people didn't think about eternity that way. I mean, they only lived to like 35, 40 years old. So they didn't really think like
That's a
now
good.
we're living to
That's a good point.
90 and 100, 100 something years old. and we can see a way, like especially with transhumanism, where we could possibly put our consciousness into robots, or who knows what we could do to prolong our lives, maybe even live forever at some point.
Mm.
Which, and then the question would be, would we want to? And that's here on Earth where we have, all the sins we could want. But would we still want to live forever? At some point, we're going to be like, yeah, I think it's time to deactivate ourselves. You
No,
know what I mean?
I think that the imagination and creativity can possibly take us further. Like our minds,
Oh, yeah, that'd be dope.
we'll
Yeah,
be living in a different world. We'll have virtual worlds.
yeah,
I'm a
yeah,
big.
that'd be great.
I watched a bunch. I used to watch Star Trek all the time.
Oh, yeah, me too. I'm a big
Y-
Next Generation geek.
Yeah, like I watched Star Trek, and those, going into different environments virtually, being able to teleport and stuff like that. Who knows? I just want the option. Just give me the option.
Yeah, yeah, I'm all for the
Yeah,
option.
this is the option. If
I'd
I could
love
get
to
the
have
option.
that. I'd love to be able to transfer my consciousness into a robot, or into a VR program, or even have nanobots sustain my life,
Hmm.
for a long period of time. That'd be great.
Yeah.
But at some point, I gotta think that I'm gonna want some euthanasia. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe it'd be a million years,
Yeah.
maybe 2 million years. Hey, I might even go 3 million. But at some point, I'm gonna be like, it's time to go.
I mean, I don't know, man. I'll take the eternal life, man. Because you know
Yeah,
what? I can always take a nap.
yeah, that's
I'll just
true.
take a nap for like 2 million. Wake up.
No, that
Have
would
I
be
been
fun,
asleep?
actually.
Two
Yeah, that would be
million.
fun.
All right,
Yeah,
I'm
that'd
good.
be great. Like, yeah, you might have swayed me on that
Yeah.
one.
Wake up
Because yeah,
again.
you take a nap 2 million years and wake up to a whole new world.
I'll be bored. I'm bored. I'm going to sleep. Wake me up in like 100 years.
Let me just shut down for a little while and come back in a couple million years, see how
Yeah.
the world's changed.
Never. I would never
Yeah, that might be
choose.
fun. Yeah.
I would never choose non-existence over existence. Just think about what you're saying.
Mhm.
Yo,
Right.
non-existence. It's not like
Right.
you're gonna be chilling somewhere like a ghost.
Right.
It's like
Right.
that. It's literally you're not gonna exist anymore. I will
Yeah,
always
that's true.
choose
Yeah, maybe
existence over
shutdown would be
non-existence.
better.
I know
Maybe
people.
shutdown would be better.
Yeah, because I know people feel a little uncomfortable saying that, but I don't have no
Mhm.
problem saying that because I work in
No, no.
hospice
Yeah.
and I see people
No,
die
I
all the
get
time.
it. I mean, you know, I wouldn't wish that on anybody, if they don't want it. But
Yeah,
yeah, after a period of time, you never know how you're gonna feel.
that's
But
true.
yeah, if you can shut down for a little while, that'd be great.
Take a nap,
I'd do
B.
that.
Take a nap. I feel like Dame Dash.
Yeah.
Take a nap, B.
Yeah,
That's what
take a
it
nap. Yep.
is.
Yeah, wake up a couple million years, see what the world looks like. Yeah.
Yeah.
I always remember that the original movie, The Time Machine, based on H.G. Wells's book,
Oh yeah, yeah.
where he pretty much goes into the future to like the end of the earth, and
Mm,
sees what the world looks like. That'd be
yeah,
pretty cool.
yeah. Why doesn't prayer work? Because I notice like anytime something happens in the hip hop community, the first thing people want to say is prayers up. That's the first
Right.
thing they say.
Well, I think, and as an atheist, we struggle with this too in a way. It's that we want something to do. We feel like we should say something or do
Mm-hmm.
something to make people feel comfortable in times of need.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, if somebody in my community is hurting, I can't say I'm praying for you, because that doesn't make sense for us. But what could we say? Like, good luck with that,
Yeah, it's true.
I guess. But what I find is it's better to say, is there anything we can do to help you in this time of
Right,
need?
right.
You know, and usually there's not. Usually it's just, being there to support them, saying, I'm thinking of you. But
Mm,
even saying I'm thinking of you, that's no different than prayer, really. I
thank
mean, it
you.
doesn't do anything.
Right.
It's not helpful. Um, but it might make them feel better,
Yeah.
that to know that they have people that are caring and thinking of them. And that's really what prayer does, I guess, in a sense. It's, you know, letting people know that there are others caring about them. But there's no magical powers from God associated with prayer, because if there was, then everybody who was prayed for would be healed.
Yeah. Um, my condolences goes out to Shock G, Black Rob, and DMX. These are like cultural icons in our culture who just passed away back to back. And so I was watching and paying attention, and as a life extensionist, I think of this when people die like this. I think differently than what other people are thinking. They're thinking, we're just gonna have a great funeral. That's what they think. But me, I'm thinking about chronics. I'm thinking about, like, what I'm saying, why there's no more life extension research. Why we're not increasing the healthy lifespan in this country. Why isn't that the goal? So when these people were when we found out either they were dying or they died, the first thing people did was say, let's pray. And I'm saying to myself, this must be just an emotional way to. This is something that they, saying prayers up. It's almost admitting that you're not. There's nothing you could do about the situation. Am I
Hmm.
right or wrong?
Right, yeah,
It's
definitely.
almost an admittance, like,
Especially,
all I can do is
right,
pray. I can't do anything else. It's
right,
admittance that I
especially after
can't do
somebody's
anything.
died, that's not doing anything for anybody.
Yeah,
Um, after somebody's died, the thing to do would be to reach out to the family, and be like, is there anything we can do? And if it's somebody who you're not access to the family, like they're famous people, just say, we'll remember them, or, we'll try to, you know, live by their example, or try to use their life as an example for ourselves, things like that. Um, but that's why I always think that it's super important to let the people in your life know how much they mean to you while they're still alive.
right. Well,
I think that's super, important. Um, just because, like, you don't know when people are going to die.
let me let,
Uh,
let me just
no,
say.
go on.
Let me just interrupt just for 1 second. How come people are not putting money into life extension research, and how come we're not curing these diseases in this country, and most of our money goes to uh the military? Why can't it go into
Yeah,
healing us? What's wrong with putting most of that money
I
into healing us?
100% agree with you. Um,
Why is these congressmen and these politicians think it's okay to be uh why there's so many religious people in Congress? I don't Why they don't mix it up? Why everybody got to be
right.
religious? I
Yeah,
don't
we're
understand.
starting to make inroads in Congress now with a few um, atheist congressmen. We actually have a free thought, what do they call that? Caucus. A free thought caucus in Congress now. It has I think, like two or three different congressmen in there. One who I had the privilege to meet was Jamie Raskin from Maryland. He made big waves not long ago because he was doing the impeachment with of Trump, and Jamie Raskin he came to the Reason Rally, which was a big atheist event in D.C. A number of years ago, and so I got to meet him, and it was amazing. One, that you have an atheist rally in DC and have a congressman come to that event, because atheism, religion sells in America.
Yeah,
It does, and you have atheism drives Congress people away. I tell this funny story. Became friendly with a local U.S. congressman in my area. Um, and I was down in DC for a rally at the Supreme Court for an atheist rally. Supreme Court when they were doing the pledge in the, I think it was under God in the Pledge of Allegiance case, and the congressman happened to be walking by because the Supreme Court was on the way from his office to the Capitol building, and he saw me and he was surprised to see me, and he came up to me and he said hi, and then he asked me why, what I was doing in his city, and in a joking way. And I told him I was at this rally, for the pledge in the Supreme Court, pledge for under God and the pledge, and he was like, "Oh, okay, nice talking to you. See ya, gotta go." And he was a friend of mine, but he knew, like, if I'm talking atheism, he doesn't want to be seen,
Yeah.
by the media, you know, and I don't know what his political leanings are, with his religious leanings are, I should say. I would guess he's a moderate Christian, but he's a super progressive guy. So, but if he really believes it, I don't know. But the fact that just he didn't want to be associated with atheism because in politics, that's the kiss of death. And it's less so now than it used to be, but it's still pretty much the kiss of death. I had a friend of mine who was running for school board, and I think it was the night before the election. Republicans put out signs all over everybody's doors that said, this guy is an atheist. Don't vote for him. He worships the devil. And
This is a good tactic.
it was effective. It was effective. He did not win. He did not win.
Wow.
So, that kind of thing that happens.
Wow. The Republicans was dirty.
That's dirty right there.
Wow.
So,
well,
but it was effective. It scares people.
Yeah, it does. It does. But people we got to grow up, people,
Yeah.
We got to grow up.
I mean, that's part of the reason we live in a society that focuses more on religious faith than it does science and reason. And if we moved more towards science and reason, we could hopefully have more funding towards things that are more scientific and more reasonable. Right. And like we knew about pandemics years ago. I think Obama even had a plan to deal with a potential pandemic, and then they shelved it. When Trump came in, he shelved that. And
wow.
And then we had a pandemic.
Yeah. Wow.
Go figure. But yeah, if we put our resources where we needed them to be, and we definitely need to decrease the military. That's that goes without saying, because a lot of those military projects are for things that we don't need right now, because we're not living in the Cold War anymore. We don't need stealth aircrafts. We don't need that. We don't need a fleet of stealth aircrafts. That's not going to help us. That's, the greatest threats to our military right now are like terrorists and computer hacking. A new stealth bomber isn't going to solve those issues.
A lot of people say that the forefathers were Christians. Now, I know that's not true, right?
It's somewhat moderately true. There were some cracks in that. Jefferson was very much skeptical of religion, but he did believe in Jesus. He did not believe in the Bible. What he actually did was he took the Bible and carved it up and took out all the parts that were not Jesus. And it's actually called the Jeffersonian Bible.
Yeah, I know about that. Yeah.
It's a pretty famous thing. John Adams was religious, very religious, but he also acknowledged that we live in a country that should be welcoming to all religions. And so he wanted to make that very clear. And he definitely wanted America not to be a Christian nation, but to be a nation for everybody.
Yeah, because I know that a few of them were deists also.
Yeah, the biggest one was Thomas Paine, who he was not a signer of the Declaration, but he was one of the founding people. He was associated with a lot of those founders, and he wrote a lot of the influential writings of that time. Right. And he was notoriously deist, so much so that he wrote a book called The Age of Reason,
The age of
where
reason.
he
Yeah.
tried to defend deism. Now
Mm.
he also did it and attacked atheism,
Yeah.
but I think had he been alive today and seen the scientific advances we had today, he would probably be an atheist.
Right.
But uh, but yeah, he was a very strong vocal deist, and he got a lot of trouble for that. A lot of people he basically was disowned by America for his deism.
Um, in God we trust is on our money. When
Yeah,
did it get there? Because it wasn't there when the
right.
forefathers was around.
It got there in the 1950s, in the midst of the what we call the Red Scare.
Mm.
And, what happened was after World War II, communism became a big deal, and we had like Senator Joe McCarthy, who believed that everybody he didn't like was a communist, and he chased everybody out. They tried to blacklist people, kick them out of their jobs, um, and everybody was, if you're a communist, you can't work in America, and you're evil. And they really demonized communism, and because communists are associated with communists
Yeah, with atheism.
are atheists, they assume all atheists are communists.
Right, right.
That's not necessarily true, not at all. Although communism now is coming back in a stronger way. I wouldn't say I'm a communist. I would say I'm part communist, part capitalist. I'm kind of a mix.
Mm.
Um, it's a weird kind of thing. I think there's value in both those philosophies to a certain extent. It's
Mm.
when one's completely overwhelms the other, that's when we have issues.
Mm.
Right now, capitalism is completely overwhelming our system.
Right.
Uh, but so anyway, during the Red Scare, they had the fear was that if you're not you know uh, a God believer, that you've got to be a communist. So we're going to make everybody believe in God. And
Mm.
so that's when they put God on our money. Actually, it's funny
Wow.
because there's a church not far from where I live that was the church that proposed it, that they were the ones that first came up with that idea. And they have a big plaque on their church. So, in God
Wow.
we trust started here, or something like
They're
that. I
proud of
forget what
that.
it was.
They're proud of
Yeah,
that.
they're proud of that.
Whatever happened to the separation between church and state? They just broke that.
Yeah.
They just
Yeah,
jumped.
they totally broke that.
They need to be stepped to, man.
Yeah, they
I'm about to go
totally
down
broke
there and talk
that.
to those people, knock on their door, like, yo,
Yeah.
y'all gotta help take that off the bills now, man, because y'all
Yeah.
actually, what happened to church? The separation between church and state. Come on now, how
Yeah.
we let them get
We
away
have
with that?
every once in a while we have a court case and that goes up to the Supreme Court on that issue. Um, and it usually gets defeated for, some weird reason, but they really shouldn't be there. I think the big reason was they considered In God We Trust to be ceremonial, uh, and not really religious. But
Nah,
how can you say God's not religious? Like,
yeah,
I would think even the religious people would take offense to that. Like, what? You're saying our belief isn't religious? Like,
yeah.
but yeah, I find that odd.
Nah, they doing this is corruption. These are
Right.
different people.
It's their way of saying we don't want to do anything about it.
Yeah,
We can't find any real reason to not do anything. So,
I don't see how people are not outraged by that. That's weird. People are really. That's really weird that
yeah. Like
they
whenever
would
I bring
accept
up
something like that.
Yeah, whenever I bring up "In God We Trust" on our money, religious people are like, oh, that's not, it's why do you care about something so minor? Like, who cares? And I get that it's kind of a minor thing, but it can be a big deal because people use that to justify other things.
Yeah.
Um, and there was a time where I was working in a machine shop and I was out. I had to pick up some supplies or something. I had to get reimbursed from the company. And the woman at the company who was in charge of reimbursing was like, I don't think I'm going to reimburse you because it says in God we trust on your money. And at that time I was pretty well out of the closet as an atheist. Um, and I was like, really? Like, I was like, really? You're going to go there? Because I could take this to our boss if you want. And, you got no
Whoa.
grounds on that. And she backed down pretty quick. But I mean, the fact that she even said that is just,
Wow.
is unbelievable.
Wow. She
And I
said,
don't even know how serious she was, but I
no,
mean,
she wasn't. She probably was
yeah,
being sarcastic, but I mean, come
yeah, she
on
was
now.
probably being sarcastic, but still, like, yeah, at the same time, like, that's
Yeah.
not, you don't play with people's, money.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah. I would have took
Like,
offense to it too. I would have been like, whoa, 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 whoa. We
yeah, I
going a
was like,
little
oh,
too
I can
far.
take this upstairs to our boss if you want.
Nah, I feel
It's
you
your
on that.
choice.
She
But
trying to
yeah, I
get,
mean,
yo, she trying to flex. She said, you should have used the money because you're an atheist.
yeah, I was
Wow.
like,
That's some, that's
yeah,
a,
I'll never
that's,
forget that because that
that's,
was I was young then, and I started at this new company, and
yo.
I had just come out of the closet at the company as an atheist. Like I've mentioned that Supreme Court case that I was at the rally at. Well, the newspaper had covered that,
Mm,
and I knew they had covered it. They had interviewed me for that piece,
mm,
and I was aware of it. I just didn't think when they interviewed me that it was going to be seen at my workplace. And that everybody at
mm.
my workplace was going to know, and then that would be it,
Yeah.
right? I just
Wow.
didn't think that far ahead. I wasn't I was young and I wasn't thinking.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so at that point, everybody at my work knew, and yeah, I got some positive reactions, some negative reactions, and it
Wow.
was an interesting time.
Wow. Whoa. God, we trust on money. Something else.
Yeah,
Something.
it's crazy.
Bananas. Oh, another thing I get from this is not slightly about atheism, but well, when I tell people, the theory of evolution is a fact, they say no, it's not. It's a
Mhm.
theory. It's like they don't even understand
Right, right.
what scientists mean when they say that this is a theory of something. They don't.
Hmm.
So I think there's a misconception about that also.
Yeah, there's a big misconception about that. A theory, everything, like when we think of gravity, gravity is a fact. I mean, we know if we drop something, it falls, but it's called the theory of gravity,
Right.
right? Because the way theories work is, um, I mean, I'm not a science expert, so I'm going to try my
Yeah.
best to explain. Um, but it's only as good until we have something that disproves it.
Right.
But we're always leaving room to disprove it.
Right.
So we can always come back to gravity. And I think there was actually a case a few years ago, maybe like I want to say like 10 years ago, where some scientists ran some experiment and they said, we think we might have disproved the theory of general relativity,
Wow.
which would be ridiculous because
Mm.
that's like a really solid theory of energy and matter, and everybody knows E equals
Mm-hmm.
mc
Mm-hmm.
squared. What it actually means translates into, it's a little more complicated. But for these scientists, they said we think we might have disproven this. When we're not sure, we need some other scientists to check our work because this can't be right. Like we must have made a mistake because we can't be disproving the general theory of
Right.
relativity. But here's our results. Take a look at it. And they have something in science called peer review, where other scientific teams will take a look at your
Right.
data and redo your experiment.
Mm.
It turns out in that case, they made a calculation error, and you know,
Right.
general theory of relativity is still intact.
Right.
um, but yeah, it's the same kind of thing with evolution. If somebody finds evidence, science is open to revising that theory of evolution. But we have not found, nobody has found that kind of evidence. All the creationists can huff and puff, but until they find some actual evidence that we can, peer review, um, they got nothing.
Right. Right. Yeah. Science is about that objective viewpoint. Give it to somebody else.
Mhm.
Let them come produce the same experiment and see if they come up with the same results. Yeah,
Right.
definitely. Yeah,
And if science gets it wrong, they'll revise the theory,
mm,
and try, they won't necessarily scrap the theory entirely, although they might, depending on what the data suggests, but they could revise the theory and try to, make sense of the new data.
mm, right, right. Wow. Oh yeah. This is a good one. Wouldn't you have to be all knowing to disprove the existence of God?
I love that.
I hear that
Yeah,
too.
I actually do mention that a little bit in my book,
Yeah.
um, because I mentioned earlier on the show with Darth Vader. Darth Vader lived a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. I don't know. Is Darth Vader real? Should we have a serious intellectual discussion about whether or not Darth Vader is real? I mean, or do you feel confident saying, no, Darth Vader's fiction? George Lucas made him up. I feel confident saying George Lucas made him up. But I wasn't in a galaxy far, far away a long time ago. So I wasn't there, didn't see it, don't know, could be there. He could be out there. Darth Vader might, he could use the Force. Who knows? He could have used the Force on George Lucas's mind and put those thoughts into George Lucas's mind. We don't know. So there's two kinds of knowledge. I guess we talk about practical knowledge and absolute knowledge. Like, do we know for a fact that God doesn't exist on any kind of level? No, there's no way to know that. But on a practical level, just as I'm confident to say that Darth Vader doesn't exist, I'm just as confident to say that God doesn't exist.
Right. Um, do atheists believe in the idea of a soul? Or can you be an atheist and believe that you have a soul in the afterlife too?
I guess you can be technically an atheist and believe in a soul and an afterlife. Although, again, with the supernatural, I think it would be
It's a
it
bit
would
odd.
be a bit odd. I
Right.
remember when I was in college, I was the president of the philosophy club, and I did a program. It was right after the first um, remake of the Planet of the Apes movie came out,
Hmm.
and a big line is in that movie was, "Is there a soul in there, a human?" And I did a program called "Is There a Soul in There, a Human?"
Hmm.
where we talked about whether or not we have souls.
Hmm.
And Scientologists believe we have thetans, right? I don't know too much about Scientology,
Hmm.
but they believe we have thetans, which are some kind of alien thing that are bad for us, I guess, and we have to try and get rid of our thetans somehow. But there's no evidence for thetans, and nobody, religious people aren't going to waste any time arguing whether or not they have too many thetans in their body. I don't feel we need to argue too much about whether or not we have a soul because I think it's just a preposterous thing. Like there's no, there's no evidence for it.
Right.
Um, we do have a consciousness, and what that is exactly is nobody really knows,
Right.
and that's okay to say that we don't really know how our consciousness is created or how that what factors play into that. It's probably some kind of neurochemical thing going on, and hopefully we'll figure that out and we can put that consciousness into a computer or a robot or a virtual
Hmm.
scenario. But we're not there yet.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't think it's anything supernatural.
Yeah.
I don't think we have a soul necessarily.
Yeah. Yeah. I get that a lot. Yeah, I think we hit on most of the stuff I wanted to ask. Um,
Cool.
wow. I know people are gonna be like, they're gonna when I make the title and I put atheist in it, the people might be like, they might be scared to click on, but yeah, because
No, I'm pretty non-threatening.
yeah,
You know,
no, no,
I try to
yeah,
be a pretty compassionate person. My title, I will admit, my title is a little attention grabbing
it's
with
proving God.
disproving God. I wanted that to be kind of something that grabs people's attention,
Mm,
makes them want to say, how is he going to do that? Even atheists are like, can't disprove God. I mean, it's a negative. You can't disprove him a negative, which
right.
is what I get a lot from the atheist community. I get pushback there.
Mm,
And that's the traditional atheist argument against that kind of thing, and that's true. That's a good argument,
yeah,
no doubt. But what I try to do is take it a step further and say, yeah, it's true. We don't need to disprove God, but I can.
Right.
So I will.
Yeah, I agree.
And I'll have fun doing it. So,
Yeah. I definitely wanted to challenge the hip hop community because, with all the death that's surrounding, I mean, you got hip hoppers know that we're gonna grow old, right? You're gonna grow old. I mean, you could pray all day, but with age comes age related diseases. With age there's a decline that's happening as you get older. So,
yeah, yeah,
you guys are praying and praying and praying and praying and praying and praying when we can put up the money and support the science and use some of that money that we're generating. We're generating like $10 billion a year, man, in the hip hop
yeah.
culture.
We got
We're generating that
to
amount of
start.
money.
Yeah, we got to start funding ways to sustain our life better,
Yeah,
to have a better quality of life while we're here. That's the big thing with atheism is instead of worrying about heaven and hell and what's going to come after life,
right,
I find that atheists tend to be more concerned about what's going on in life,
right,
like what we're doing right now. How are we going to make this world a better place?
right.
How are we going to fix the inequalities going on in this world? How are we going to uh, fix the problems going on in our world? We have environmental problems, which it doesn't take a lot to see that we're already having violent weather changes
Yeah,
going on. And this is just the beginning. It's going to get way worse, and we gotta deal with this climate issue. We got to deal with the injustices going on in our society right now. We got to deal with all so many issues.
yeah,
The world is full of this pandemic. We just have a million issues to deal with, and we're worrying about you know heaven and hell and is God going to save us? No, God's not going to save us. We got to save ourselves,
yeah,
and that goes on a level not just on these big issues, but on our small issues too in life. Like you have a friend who's addicted to substances or whatever. We got to help them. We can't just pray for them because praying for them is not going to do anything.
yeah,
We got to. How can we help them? How can we support our friends and neighbors? Um, even if it's a stranger on the street, how can we support people? How can we be there in the moment with people?
right.
Instead of praying for them and thinking that God's going to solve their problems because God doesn't exist. He's not going to solve their problems. We got to do it. We got to solve problems.
And I'm gonna end it on that note.
All
I don't
right.
think I could have said it any better.
Thank you.
This is Super Longevity Institute. Law Maitreya, Stacks, Roche. We out.
Thank you.
Thank you.